Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Jeff. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to do 5 hacks for a marriage refresh. I got 5 things for you that I think you can do this month that will help you refresh your marriage, kind of get back to that connection that you had back when you decided that this is the person you wanted to be married to. So, what do you think about the idea that conflict is inevitable, right? In relationships, we talk, we fight, we argue, things just happen, right? One will never know where we're going to go eat or where we want to go eat. Often, I have double booked us for events that neither of us wanted to go to. And for the love of everything holy, as a husband, I will never, ever, ever, ever get all of my clothes into the laundry basket. Not to mention all the different ways that we could try to raise little humans, how to be career professionals, husbands, mothers, fathers, parents, HVAC technicians, plumbers, mechanics, all the things that can go wrong, right? These are all things that we genuinely have to figure out how to be. And inevitably, arguments happen, things happen, and stuff comes up all the time, right? Just this week, a heater in my house doesn't work very well, so we've been working with HVAC technicians and trying to figure out how to make heaters work in different spaces so we can make it work. We've been doing okay. It's been fun. It's been a challenge. But those kind of things can put tension on a marriage to the point that things blow up and they get really nasty. Hopefully, some of these things will help you connect with your spouse, and when things do go wrong, they just happen and you figure out how to move on together, right? Those are some of the trivial things that we can think about, but sometimes there's a couple of things that we just wish were different and we don't know what it is or we don't know why it's different. We get into arguments about just some of the most random stuff, but let's say right now at the beginning, fighting is not communicating. And avoiding the issues isn't productive either. And we say fighting like the screaming matches where you're getting to the point where you want to throw things at each other. Nothing productive is going to come from something like that. And neither is avoiding any of the stuff like that. So what do we do? Do we roll over and we go to sleep and see what happens tomorrow? That might work for a little bit of time. But if you do that consistently, some of those things turn into resentment or become a barrier towards things like adult happy time or date day or any of the other activities that you guys want to go and do together. Or they come out at really, really awkward times like Thanksgiving dinner. And nobody likes talking about their marriage at Thanksgiving dinner, right? But these 5 things I think are going to be super awesome to help refresh your marriage. Get back to that moment when you guys decided, hey, there might be something to this. Let's go on a second date, right? Can you take some time to get to know how your spouse functions, right? Maybe it's been 15 years since you guys got married. You've grown a lot since then, whether you've been married for a week or a year or 10 years, or you've been married 60 years. Things are different now than when you got married. Or if you're thinking about getting married, things will be different 10 years down the road. Things are good now and they're probably solid, but maybe there's a little bit of distance. Can we take these next few things and make them a priority in this next month and see what happens? And I'm going to do them with you. And you guys have to hold me accountable and make sure I talk about it. But can you take time to understand the big picture of what's going on in your spouse's life, right? Because maybe they started a new job, or maybe they've been promoted, or maybe a couple of things have happened in the last couple of months or couple of years, and their life's just a little bit different. You're still married, things are awesome, but life looks different. Can you take some time to see what's going on in their life, right? We've talked about this in the past. It's not necessarily that you want your spouse to unload every single detail about work. And if you're having this conversation with your spouse, just like, what do they do? What's their job? Not that you got to go into detail about how to do accounting, but, how is life? What is life outside of the house? What's going on? Can you take some time to get to know about the big picture in their life? What's their big stress thing? Stuff like that. Second thing, what makes your spouse tick? And can you make your spouse and their personality and who they are a priority for the next couple of weeks, just to focus on them and be like, how are you? What's going on? Choose them first before, the football game. Maybe not in February. There's a big one in February. But could you spend 5 less minutes in the garage and just hang out with your spouse, or whatever it is, right? There's many different ways that can happen. There are fun things you can do. If you want to make an extra date night out of it, go for it. But if you just want to spend a couple of extra minutes before dinner, just seeing how they tick, what makes them do things, what makes them get through life, right? There was a moment when you guys said that you were the one for each other and everything was about them. Take some time to try to get back to that moment and learn who your spouse is now, right? However many years or weeks or months it's been, who are they today, right? Because a lot has changed. My wife works at home. So one of the things that we had to figure out is it's difficult to manage the transition time from being at work at the end of the hallway to being a mom and a husband when she comes out of her office. And so we spent some time trying to figure out what that looks like. What does it look like to be a mom? Because pre-pandemic, she had a 30 to 40 minute drive home, and she could decompress, and she would call me and we could talk about work or whatever. And then when she got home, she was home. Well, now she's home all day. So how do we process what that looks like? How can I make her a priority to get through those kind of things, right? Learning who they are now and what makes them work through this process. The third thing I got for you is, when's the last time you made your wife a cup of coffee? Or husband. Ladies, you guys watch this too. Show appreciation for your spouse. And by appreciation, I don't mean like, hey, thanks for doing the dishes, right? We work together. The house has to be clean. The kids have to get to and from school. Those kind of things happen. But when was the last time you made a cup of coffee for your spouse while they were at work, if they work from home? Or guys, the flowers work all the time, right? It doesn't matter. Or spent, guys, this is for you. When's the last time you spent an extra 5 minutes snuggled up in bed without trying to get into your spouse's pants, just to be present with each other, right? Hanging out, enjoying each other's presence, spooning, whatever you want to call it. When's the last time you did that? Just hung out, no agenda, no try to get anywhere, just be together, right? The fourth thing I have is, how does your spouse communicate, right? I say, how does your wife communicate? How does your spouse communicate, right? Not everyone can be direct and express their emotions verbally, right? Not everybody can talk and just use words. A lot of time there's body language or indirect communication about what's happening when things get tense or what's happening with life, right? I have a family of 5, and between dinner and bedtime, my house is crazy, not in a bad way. It's just each kid's getting their homework done. Each kid's got their electronics time. Each kid's getting ready for bed. I'm trying to finish up things. And my favorite thing that I do most every day is I cook dinner for our family. So my kids are running around the kitchen while I'm getting dinner ready, and some of them want to help cook. What are the tools, or what are the things that can happen in that? Like, how does your spouse communicate, right? Whether it's being able to address something head on right now, like, hey, this is a problem, let's deal with it, or do they need time to process, right? Generally speaking, I like to just, let's just go do it. Like, let's have at it. Kim likes to process things. She likes to think about things and then come back with a longer discussion or a deeper discussion later, which is all fine. It's wonderful. But you need to know how they do that and how they communicate. Or can you look at your spouse across the room after a hard day at work and just know that she had one, right? Can you see the tension in their face or how they're carrying themselves, whatever it is? There are some days when I've come back from a long day out driving around in Uber, or I've come back from a hard day at the office, that I have a couch in our bedroom that I sit and study at, that I'll just go sit there. I'll tell my kids, Daddy needs 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. I'm going to go sit in here. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm just going to listen to the fan noise in my room. And my wife will come out of work, and, I've heard her a couple of times, hey, where's Daddy? And the kids will be like, Daddy's resting. And she'll come peek her head in. She'll see where I'm sitting, and then she'll just go on about her thing. She knows that I need a couple of minutes What are those kind of things that you can see from your spouse? Is there something that your spouse does without having to say anything, that that there's a moment that they need a moment, or you guys can work together for something? So how do they communicate non-verbally through your marriage and stuff like that, right? And going along with that, and this will help a lot, maybe it's a bonus one. Do you know your spouse's love language? There are many, tips and tricks and things that you can do to try to stay happily married. The love language changed my life. Like Gary Chapman and his book, The Five Love Languages, is amazing. There's several different versions of it for kids and aunts and grandmas, and so read every version of it. If you got kids, get your kids to read that one. But do you know your spouse's love language, and do you know how to use it? Because what often happens, and Gary Chapman talks about this in the book, is we have a love language, and often the way we express how we love our spouses is our love language. Well, if your spouse's language isn't the same, then it does this. Not a bad thing. You're trying to love your spouse, but if you're trying to love your spouse in a way that doesn't fulfill them, things don't always end up the way you'd hope they would. Do you know your spouse's love language, and do you know how to use it, right? So my wife's is quality time and physical touch are her top two. So quality time, like hanging out together. So we almost every day, after the kids go to bed, my kids go to bed between 8 and 8:30. We'll sit on the couch together and we'll watch a TV show together, or I'll finish up some work on my laptop, and just being in the same room with each other. And it sounds weird and it's dumb, but these are the kind of nonverbal cue things. Like our feet are usually together at the end of our couch. We have the lounge chair, right? So we're sitting up and our feet touch. And so that gets quality touch, or quality time and physical touch together at the same time. But things like holding hands is one of the things my wife enjoys, right? So when we're in the car or when we're walking around, we hold hands, right? Those kind of things. Mine is words of affirmation. So I like to know that I'm doing a good job. So my wife will tell me, or she'll leave me notes, or she'll text me things telling me that I've been doing good, or hey, how you handled the kids last night was awesome, or whatever, stuff like that. So knowing your spouse's love language and how to fill their love tank, as Gary Chapman talks about. Go read the book. It's fantastic. It helps a lot. Will do amazing things for a marriage. And then this one hurts, and this last one. Do you know how to forgive and move on? Right? And that's a deep one. Many of us take a deep breath. Does your spouse fear Does your spouse fear making a mistake in your marriage? Right? And I'm not talking about the big ones like breaking the bond of marriage and infidelity and stuff like that. Those things are a lot bigger process and issue that needs to be dealt with. But the seemingly not important things like not having dinner ready on time, or running out of gas, or I forgot to go get the kids one time. I wasn't late. I like to be early, but I looked at the clock and I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing something right now. And it was go get my kids. Right? Little things like that. There are simple accidents, right? This is a kid thing, but this will help paint our picture here. My kids are old enough to do things like empty the dishwasher. Inevitably, once every so often, a dish gets dropped and it shatters all over the floor, right? It happens. My kids use step stools and chairs to put dishes away. And it happens. So in our house, when something like that happens, everything stops. Nobody moves, right? Even the dog has learned that when a dish breaks, everybody stops. So if I'm around, the first thing we do is we check to make sure that the kid is okay, and then we'll physically carry them. They're still little. Physically carry them to the next room or away from wherever the broken glass is, so that we can get it cleaned up and stuff like that. And so we talk about accidents, right? If you're okay, we're okay. And we move on, right? Accidents happens. There's no consequences. There's no timeout. There's no fighting about what happened or how it could have been done differently or this, that, and the other thing. It's a broken dish. We move on. right? That's not the same thing as if you've asked your kid 9 times to stop jumping on the couch and the 10th time they jumped on the couch and broke a lamp. That would have timeout and consequences, extra chores, whatever. But when those kind of things happen with our spouses, is there a fear of making mistakes because we tend to not forgive and move on? Right? That's a difficult one. That's a tough one. That's one I hear a lot, is that our spouses tend to get upset about things that aren't important in the big picture. Yes, there are habits and things that can be addressed, but sometimes our spouses fear just making mistakes because they fear that they're going to get in trouble. And maybe there's some things in the past. I am not a professional. If that's something you guys need to go and see a therapist about or talk to a counselor, absolutely, it is okay not to be okay. I am not a professional. This is just some things that my wife and I think are practical in how we approach marriage. But try those 5 things over the next couple of weeks and see what happens. Maybe have one of the strategy meetings we've talked about in this past year, where you sit down and talk about what life looks like for the next couple of months. Whatever it is, remember this person is the one, right? If you're a Friends follower, is this person your lobster? How have they grown since day one? And can you take some time to see who they are? Make them your priority. See how they tick. How do they communicate? And can you guys move on from past things that have happened? Those are all difficult. Sometimes it's fun to go down memory lane and see how you've grown and remember things. My wife and I had talked about our past vacations and stuff, and how we do trips, not like extravagant gifts or things like that. So we go places and we do something. Like this past year, we went to South Carolina for a week and a half. We go tent camping in national parks for 10 days with little kids. It's weird. My favorite author is John Acuff. He also has a podcast, but he said something, or somebody said something on his podcast of Little House, Big Adventures. And so we kind of have that mentality of we take time with each other to go and do things and not necessarily have the big stuff and the big things, right? The stuff is necessary, right? You need to have a place to live and you have to get to work and all of that stuff. But could you go do stuff? And that's totally not what we're talking about. But the idea is spending time and how you take time to understand your spouse and maybe even take time to understand your kids. Make them a priority. Show appreciation to them, and not just saying thank you, but like going a little bit above the normal to make them feel appreciated. Learn how they communicate non-verbally and how to move on when things happen and don't always go the way you expect them to. All right, that's a lot. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for watching. As we say every week, and we remind, we are not mental health professionals. If you got to a point where you think you or your spouse needs to go see a counselor or a therapist, find one in your community, and they can hopefully guide you in a direction that you want to go. You can check us out at My Wife Still Likes Me on all the socials, the website at mywifestilllikesme.com, and like, comment, subscribe, tell us what you want to talk about, and we will see you next week. Later.